That was the day. Got my chicken barn, my chicken turkey barn, ready for a roof. It's 3 days solo on it. So I'll get that roof on tomorrow morning, and then we're out of here again. News, it's official, I booked the wildlife biologist for a few days. So I'm definitely not going to States, and I have a feeling that'll be very interesting. So I talked to him on the phone for a little bit today. It'll be 3 wildlife biologists and a arborist, tree climber. So another name for that is obviously a faller logger, and everybody's from Vancouver Island. So I asked them today, I go, you guys want to make a video with me? We'll chat about a few different topics, including this topic. And they said, yeah, we are full on in. I'm like, okay, let's get her going. So that'll be interesting for sure. Now, it's the first time I sat down since I recorded a video earlier this morning before I started my day. So no, I haven't made any phone calls yet to the ladies. I'm gonna have to get on that too, and I will. But in the meantime, I want to get some more emails done. I like this. I like sitting down and having a time out and doing this. It kind of relaxes me, and so I like getting as many people heard as I can before I take off to go to the coast again. This is titled Bigfoot Sighting in Willow Creek, California. Steve, first, let me say that I love what you're doing and appreciate watching your videos. I admire you for the man you are. Thank you for the kind words. This is Walter Rains. I'm a former teacher, basketball coach, and administrator. During my career, I worked in Virginia, West Virginia, and even a year in Arizona, school year 2020-2021. While working as the Dean of Students in Arizona, I took a trip to Willow Creek, California, because I wanted to see if I could get to the Patterson-Gimlin film site. That's interesting. I booked a room at the Bigfoot Hotel in Willow Creek. When I called to make the reservation, the lady on the other end of the phone asked why I was visiting Willow Creek. I replied to her, half laughing, I just want to see the area, maybe see a Bigfoot. She replied, matter-of-factly, well, if you get on the right road, you'll see one. I thought, wow. Once arriving Friday afternoon, I got in my 4Runner and started driving down some back roads before ending up on Bluff Creek Road. It was getting close to dusk at this time. I was driving along when suddenly, from the hill on my left side of the road, a large black bear came running down the hillside and into the road in front of me. The bear plunged through the brush and into the forest on the right side of the road. I stopped my 4Runner and got out with my GoPro, wanted to get some footage of the bear. I turned the GoPro on and was scanning the edge of the woods trying to find the bear, but I could not. I turned my camera off and walked to the front of my 4Runner. I stood looking into the forest when I saw a large creature take 2 steps between huge pine trees. I was completely shocked. My mind tried to find a place to put what I just saw, but I just couldn't. It was tall, maybe 90 feet tall, and dark. I could see the legs clearly, but it was difficult to see the upper body because it was covered in the brush and the shadows of the setting sun. My mind tried to tell me it was a bear, but it was not. If it was a bear, I could have easily seen its entire body in the opening where the Bigfoot took 2 steps. Looking about 50 to 60 yards to the left, I finally saw the bear again, and yep, what I saw was no bear. Honestly, I kind of felt that maybe the Bigfoot was stalking the bear, and that was why the bear was running so frantically. I also, and this is just speculating, think the Bigfoot made a mistake when he took the steps thinking that he was in the shadow completely. Or maybe he wanted me to see him. I don't know. Of course, I've had close friends laugh when I tell them the story, but I just tell them, I don't give a crap what you think. I know what I saw. I made a couple of videos on my journey to Willow Creek, and in the opening scene, you can see how shocked I was when I saw the Bigfoot. It took me weeks to get over this, but even now, it's like I saw something I was not supposed to see. Actually, let me share this story. Walter Rains. Okay, Walter, thanks for that, man. And how's that for some random, ridiculous luck, coincidence, luck, right? Kind of reminded me of that coincidence, that random episode. Remember years ago, there were some guys, I think in California, and they went up, there's the old VHF tape. I don't even know if it might have been a high 8 by then. I'm not sure, even older video camcorder version back then. And these two guys, the guy had a mustache and brown hair, remember that? And they went into the woods specifically to look for Bigfoot. And they said they walked right into one. It was laying down on the ground in the bushes. They figured it was sleeping or just hiding from them. And he's videotaping it from real close by. And the guy started crying too. And then they showed afterwards the outline of the foot and the knee and this and this and that. For the life of me, I just could not see the thing myself. But that kind of reminds me of that story of going to a typical classic area where they are, where some classic, well-known stories happened, and boom, you have your own encounter. I mean, how random is that, right? Don't worry about what people think, man. Like I tell everybody nonstop, the moment you quit worrying and quit caring what anybody thinks is the day you start to live. That's the day you're free. You're ultimately free to start to live. Here's another one, a word of caution. First Nations were right. Steve, you said previously that it may be more important to find out who we are than what the Sasquatch are. Well, we hear thousands of examples of people's experiences about what Sasquatch are, their behaviors and abilities. We have billions of examples of what we are, how we behaved, and our abilities. We have our own experiences throughout our lives, historical records that go back ages, and with the biblical record going back to the beginning. We're all flesh and blood, fully human, without paranormal abilities of our own. In the many miracles of blessing the apostles of Christ performed, credit was given to the Holy Spirit working in and through them. An example is Acts 16, verse 16 through 19. The point being that history reveals that we do not naturally have paranormal abilities, and when paranormal abilities are present is due to extreme external forces. In October 2021, you read my earlier encounter in Eastern Oregon. The video was new trail camera photos sent in and sightings near my house. October 26, 2021. The 3 weeks at home following that trip, I continued to have something urging me in the back of my mind to return and engage with the Sasquatch. Honestly, it could have been my own subconscious telling me this, but remembering Scott Carpenter's admonition about researching them, I refused to go. It took about 3 weeks for the nagging urge. It took about 3 weeks for the nagging urge to subside. Since then, they have twice banged on my house. I have different kinds of accent lights around my house except for the west side. It's on that side that they banged on the house. I rebuked them in Christ's name, and they've stopped. About a month later, I told my wife's friend of my encounter. I found out a few weeks later that he became very interested in the subject and had gone home and immediately began researching online. He reached out to me saying that it was only a few days after starting his research that he began having dreams of them standing at the edge of the forest asking him to come see them. I don't remember if it involved daytime mind speak, but he was unnerved by the experiences. I urged him not to go until he knew more about them and if he could determine who was really speaking to him. Just to note, in my opinion, mind speak is powered by the other side, be it Sasquatch, Dogman, ET, Demon, etc. I've recently read multiple encounters where people, when they really want a first-hand experience from where they stand, in their home or backyard, they simply need to say out loud, "Come visit me, I want to see you." You never know what you'll get, but you'll get Sasquatch or other beings that will show up in a matter of days. And you'll get all the bells and whistles people talk and cry about too. It's like the First Nations people say, don't say their name out loud, otherwise they may come to visit you. When that is a reality, we should know we're not talking about anything that is natural or normal. My hunting buddy, who was roared at during our hunt, reached out to me in January this year. He had just moved to South Central Texas. A few days after moving in, he went for a walk in the green belt behind his house. Within eyesight of his house, he found a Sasquatch wood structure where they create the teepee against a standing tree. A week later, the 4-inch limb above the teepee was twisted off and barely attached. A few weeks after that, he and his son went disc golfing across town. Alongside the course in the woods was another teepee structure. When he called to tell me of these things, I told him about Robin McRae, a woman who has had 50 years of constant interactions with Sasquatch, Dogman, ETs, and other cryptids. I told him how she had a Sasquatch morph into a raccoon in her front yard. My buddy was shocked, as he then told me just days earlier he had been looking at the teepee with binoculars from his backyard, and a raccoon crawled out of the tree and ran off on the ground. Not rock solid proof, but oddly coincidental. So, with all this in mind, I have refrained from actively researching and instead have been researching the researchers. I swear it's like none of these people research other people's work. As you know from reading first-hand encounters, the information and truth is out there. We just have to find it. I recommend everyone watch Florida researcher Mark Barton's interview on YouTube. It's titled Mark Barton and the Trail to Bigfoot. Talks about his terrifying experience with the creature, August 1st, 2020. It answers a ton of questions and explains way more about what is happening to missing people and why they go missing. Rob McCrae, who I recommended you interview, mind spoke with the female alpha Sasquatch who was there when Mark Barton was assaulted, and explains that ETs had coerced the younger Sasquatch to assist in the event. The alpha female was the one who broke into the ET's mind speak and told Mark to run. Rob McCrae has answers to what these cryptids are. She also acknowledges that the world governments have been creating their own versions of Sasquatch and dogmen, which are far more violent and savage. She also confirms what we hear in the emails sent to you, that where you find Sasquatch, you'll also find ETs and other paranormal activity. From a Christian perspective, I acknowledge the existence of the triune God, humanity and the angels which he created. Satan and the demons are fallen angels which God cast out when they rebelled. The Nephilim were created by the fallen angels mating with human females. The record of the Nephilim showed them to be far larger than any recorded Sasquatch. Footprints laid in newly hardening stone are over 4 feet long. Ancient architecture has been clearly designed for someone 50 plus feet tall. It's now my opinion that Sasquatch and the other cryptids are offspring of other beings that still retain the angel DNA of the Nephilim. Dogmen say they are canine, human, and ET. ET, in my opinion, are fallen angels. It's that angel DNA that gives them paranormal abilities. There are others that look like Sasquatch called Dugwe that are similar to Sasquatch but have snouts like a bear. They are also called face eaters, and even the Sasquatch fear them. The Bat Squatch, recorded as living near Mount St. Helens in Washington State, is another. The list goes on. It's my opinion that Satan is developing his own army of cryptids in opposition to the triune God. Rob McCrae, who, like Scott Carpenter, is called to assist with Sasquatch/ET issues, acknowledges that sightings and encounters are increasing greatly. You see the same trend in encounters emailed to you. We also know that there is a worldwide conflict between good and evil that picked up some steam when Trump was elected to office, and what I'll call the White Hats went to war to eradicate the satanic cabal from the earth. Some would even say, knowing the extent of what's happened in the last 6 years, that it seems to indicate the end of times war is waging right now. What's interesting is that in this YouTube video, I'm not going to promote anybody's channel, sorry. Robin states that 32 Sasquatch were telling her 6 years ago of a big battle coming. Alright, so this Robin McCrae states that the Sasquatch were telling her 6 years ago of a big battle coming, and 3 years ago they say it's underway. A battle in which all participants will eventually enter our dimension, and along with men, wage this war. I could go on for days with the credible information available to the online researcher, but suffice it to say that everyone needs to proceed with utmost caution when researching and digging into the paranormal. There are entities out there that don't have our best interests at heart. Wishing you only the best, Steve. Brett. Alright, if I blanked out there, I just blanked out some channels where I'm not promoting YouTube channels, alright, of people that I'm absolutely not familiar with. I'm not doing it. Sorry. Now, to you, you have directed me to look for all the answers from some people who seem to be very, very versed in looking into what you call the paranormal and these beings and demons, fallen angels, Nephilim, the whole gamut, right? I appreciate it. Myself, I am still leaning towards the First Nations people of this continent for information that I'm after. That's still I am being drawn to them. Something is steering me to be very interested in what the First Nations people have to teach me, if they will, if they can, about this topic. The demon end of things, I am not convinced that demons and the Sasquatch are the same thing. That's just me, but I'm not convinced of that at this point of the game of filling in the missing pieces in my puzzle. My puzzle and my personal ride, I'm not on that same page myself yet. I haven't come across anything to absolutely prove that or back that up yet myself. I'm still digging, I'm still looking, and I'm listening to every single person, whether or not I agree or not, I'm listening. It's like I just shared your voice and I'm listening to you. So, we shall see what happens, right? I'm getting texts while I'm sitting in here. Crazy, I don't normally get any service in here. Let's carry on, let's listen to some more people and gather in some more information. I appreciate you writing in, and I will look into the person you mentioned here today and see what's up, and let my intuition let me know how I will react to that information that's shared by these people you mentioned, all right? That's what governs me, is my intuition, my gut instinct, whatever you want to call it. I am convinced that we already know the answers of basically everything. We just have to allow ourselves to go with our instincts, our intuition, our sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, and wrap our arms around that knowledge, and keep collecting more knowledge. But we have to listen to everybody. We have to look everywhere. You got to go down every road. You got to go. A door opens up. You got to go in and take a look. That's what we're doing, right? No matter what. All right, before I start babbling too much, I'm really beat, I'm tired, I'm done, it's the end of the day, and I'm susceptible to babbling on and on. So let's get on with another share. Don't know who's next, and thank you so much for that email, appreciate it. Now, not my experience, but I thought I would share it. It's the title of this one. Hi Steve, thanks for reading my email. I just listened to one of your videos that contained a recording that Mike from New York sent in. We hear that all summer long where I live. Everyone here says it's wolves. I know better. My friend had more messages. When I said that they are protected above their young, I don't think we understand quite what that means. I had to explain through pictures what it means to us. She gave me an alternative explanation. They innately have abilities that, if uncontrolled, can be detrimental to others. Their children are born with the abilities, but not the ability to control them. They protect their children from doing harm, therefore harming their own psyche as much as from being harmed. So, if they frighten you off because their young are present, it is as much for your protection as it is the child's. This is sounding really interesting. The gentleman who had something knock on his sliding door was the victim of a teenager coming of age. They count coup, or as you put it, they dare each other to go get close to us or knock and run. We get bangs in our house on occasion. It sounds as if the composite siding had caved in, yet there is no damage done ever. We have come to just ignore them. Yes, they are afraid of humans who act out of fear and rage. Those were her messages. Now for the encounters I've been told about. I had a fishing supply store in town. Once a man came in looking rather pale. He said he and his dog had been walking on one of the trails at Jewel Lake. He said that his dog suddenly ran behind him instead of slightly ahead, like he usually did. Just then he saw something brown and hairy standing by a tree. I asked if it was a bear. He said that it was walking on two legs, and when it walked behind a tree, it disappeared. He said that the tree it disappeared behind was only about 6 inches in diameter, but this thing was at least 7 feet tall and 5 feet wide. It did disappear into the forest. It stepped between two trees and disappeared behind the next one. I smiled at him and told him it was probably a Sasquatch. And he looked relieved. He said he just wanted to make sure they were around and he wasn't going crazy. He never bought anything, he just wanted to make sure he wasn't the only one to see it. When they see us, they don't see us like we see each other. They see our light, our soul. They see our intent, our essence. When she let me see through her eyes, I was a shimmering being of colorful light that had my physical size and shape. My features were indiscernible, but I was more solid than the other light beings I saw. They had less dark colors, tending to be more white light. The only differences in them were their size. I seemed to know that all of us in the room were considered adults in our species, even the 4-foot tall ones. As I read this, I wonder if many of your followers are ready for this. Many of them are still struggling with the concept of these beings being just apes or ancient human/ape hybrids. Some, even though they have had experiences, are unsure if they even exist. But she assures me that they are ready and this is the time. Thanks again for all you do, Steve. Barb Hendrickson. Barb, I absolutely appreciate that email. When was that? That was March 8th. And you must have emailed us before. Now, when you just described what we look like through their eyes and we look like light, just to share with you guys, my instant thought was the scientist who did the study on the Sasquatches that Edgar forwarded to us. Now, do you recall when that guy said they were using a one candle power worth of light? Was what they were using when they were set up, observing the point where these beings always observed them, and I believe he said 1,400 yards or meters away. And he said he put his hand like this, and instantly the larger one looked straight at him. Now, if they see us as light, then that makes absolute sense, right? If they do. I don't know if they do. I'm still putting my puzzle together, but we just had some input there that sure meshes up with some other shares that have come in, possibly, right? That is very, very, very interesting to me. If they see us as light through their eyes, then that makes absolute sense for what those scientists shared with us about raising their hand at 1,400 meters at 2 in the morning with a half a candle or 1 candle power, and that thing spun instantly and looked right at them. Very interesting. Thank you so much for your time sending that in. Absolutely appreciate you and what you just sent. We'll see. I'm sure people are going to chime in, right? People are going to chime in. All right, what do we got here? Mark, this is red. And here we go. Camera's still recording. Overwhelmed and Alone is the title of this one. Hey friends, I hope this finds you all well and happy. I've sent in several emails about my encounters and other related subjects, and a couple of them have been read online by Steve. Hearing them come alive in front of other like-minded people gave me a little peace of mind, and I'm hoping for the same results with this one, should Steve read it. I've had a couple handfuls of physical encounters with these beings, including a few sightings, but the latest encounters have moved from the physical to the physiological / mental / spiritual realm, and it's got me feeling a little uncomfortable with the whole situation. I was on the fence about mind speak being real, but just from the increasing number of people who have experienced it and written in to tell their story, I was beginning to accept it as just another part of our reality that we can't fully grasp. That was until I experienced just that and more. More than I ever bargained for, in fact. I've always tried to come to the subject with a completely open mind and never scoffed at someone else's experience just because I hadn't had the same or because it sounded too far-fetched to be believable. Actually, I find it more helpful to accept the unbelievable and try to rationalize how it can be true than merely throw it out as junk or a waste of time and / or words. That being the case, my journey took a turn that I truly wasn't expecting, and if it hadn't happened to me, I likely would be skeptical, and it has me rattled. The first occasion happened the same as the subsequent 3 or 4. I just laid down to go to bed for the night and was having my nightly conversation with my Creator. I'm first always thankful for everything around me, this wonderful rock we live on, and all the good people in my life before moving on to make any requests. On this night, my only request was that I be granted wisdom and discernment in all things. Like Steve, I'm curious about the world and people and hope to always be able to see through the BS that gets thrown at us from nearly every angle these days. No sooner than that thought had passed through my mind, I received what I can only describe as a vision. This had never happened to me before, and it caught me completely off guard. What I saw in my mind was as bright and clear as if I had been physically witnessing it with my eyes. That description really doesn't do it justice, but that's the best way I know how to explain the feeling and experience. What I saw was like it was filmed in the highest resolution possible and in almost slow motion. The only way I can describe the scene is that it was as if I was watching from an open car/truck window, though there was no car or truck involved. That was the viewing perspective. What I saw was a beautiful green field in what felt like the middle of a clear summer day. If I was to guess, the area that I could see was 80 or so acres, with knee-high grasses making up most of it. There was a cluster of trees full of dark, shiny green leaves to the left side, situated halfway between myself and the thick stand of trees that created the horizon line. There was a line of black fence posts in the foreground, running parallel to what would have been the road if I'd been in a vehicle. So, that's the scene as I initially observed it in my mind for the first second or two. The shocker was that just on the other side of those black fence posts was a being strolling through the tall grass towards me. This being looked every bit like a human in its physical form, 2 arms, 2 legs, shoulders, etc., but was covered in long reddish hair from the top of its head all the way down to where its legs disappeared in the grass. I have no real reference to how tall it was, as I didn't know how tall the posts were, but it didn't look overly huge, yet it was fairly bulky. The color of the hair was just a little lighter than my Irish setters and was fairly long all over it as it appeared to be waving in the wind. Granted, there didn't appear to be any wind, as I don't recall seeing the leaves on the trees or the grasses moving. So my only guess is that the hair was only moving because the being was moving underneath it. It shocked me, and I opened my eyes immediately. I'm going to estimate the amount of time that I saw this to be no more than 5 seconds total. I laid there in the darkness, eyes wide open and staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what had just happened. I chalked it up to maybe I drifted off to sleep and I dreamed it. I felt guilty for falling asleep in the middle of praying and made the decision that I should finish up and try to go back to sleep. Closed my eyes and was immediately thrust back into the same exact scene, except there was no being at that time. Just a beautiful prairie landscape on a sunny day. A couple seconds of that and opened my eyes again, trying to make sense of it. I lay there in the dark, heart racing. What the hell is going on? I thought to myself. After a few minutes, I had calmed down and decided it was probably best if I just stopped thinking about it, try to sleep. Closed my eyes, and bam! I'm right back there again. And there was no being, but I felt a presence. I scanned all the way to the right, across the pasture, then angled up and scanned the tree line at the horizon, slowly moving back toward the left side, but not really wanting to see what might be there. My mind's eye got to the cluster of trees on the left. I stopped. Something told me to keep watching. At that moment, it stepped out of the group of trees and just stood there, looking at me. I didn't feel fear, but it wasn't necessarily comfortable either. A second or two passed, and I forced myself to open my eyes again. I laid awake for at least another 30 minutes before finally drifting off. A few days passed, and I couldn't shake what had happened to me. So I reached out to a friend who makes regular telepathic contact with these beings. I've emailed about her previously, and asked her if she had ever had visions. She answered that yes, she gets them all the time. She said the Sasquatch can do that as part of their telepathic abilities, and that I was in the beginning stages of learning how to do it too. What the hell? Why has no one ever mentioned this before? She goes on to tell me that she knows which one of them sent it, and that he has seen me before and likes me. I know, sounds crazy as F, but this is no BS. She told me details about how he knows me that I hadn't told anyone before, and I knew immediately the encounter she was telling me about. She said that he sent the vision as a way to introduce himself to me without showing himself in the physical world. Just typing that gives me the chills. Hey! Go gangsters. She said that he was there with 4 others during that initial experience and that I did the right thing by leaving when he threw the stick in my direction. Anyway, I thought that was kind of cool and was open to it, even though she cautioned me that it's not always safe to communicate with just anyone or anything that might come through like that. She said it had never happened before. Since it had never happened before, I had no reason to doubt that it was what she said it was, and no reason to suspect that anything bad would come of it. I told her to let them know that I mean no harm to them, and that I enjoy their home as much as they do. Before she could reply, I heard in my head, "We know." A second later, she said that they said, A second later, she said that they said they know and not to worry about it. Freaky, huh? I thought to myself, well, that's new. I guess I'll just see what comes of it. In the following nights, each time, just as I laid down in bed at night, things got weird. As soon as I would relax and close my eyes, a face would appear in my mind, and not the same face that I had seen in the field during the first vision. Upon seeing the first face in a series of faces, I opened my eyes quickly, not believing it was happening again. Then, when I closed my eyes again, I saw a succession of about 3 more faces, each one unique and not fully human. I just assumed it was the faces of the others who saw me in the aforementioned encounter, and they were introducing themselves as well? What did I know? The next few nights continued to happen, each time getting crystal clear color images and semi-human faces projected into my conscious mind. What changed was the way the faces began to appear. What changed was the way that the faces began to appear angry. At first it made me uncomfortable, but I talked myself into believing that they may not be angry at all but that I was interpreting them that way incorrectly. After all, nothing was said or done that was negative, and we all know at least one person with resting bitch face, right? I was just about to say that one. By the end of the 3rd night, that had changed, and I was definitely getting a feeling of being in danger. The faces were becoming more and more sinister looking, almost as if they were snarling at me. I don't mind admitting, this freaked me right out. On the 4th night, I decided maybe I'd better say something, if that was even possible. Before closing my eyes, I thought to myself, anyone who doesn't have good intentions towards me is not welcome to visit, and I do not want to see them. I added that there was no reason for anyone to be angry with me, and that they should just leave me alone. It seemed to work. I haven't had any more visions or mind speak, and I'm good with that. So here's the problem. I tried to tell my immediate family what had happened, and they thought I was just joking, even when I told them I wasn't. I told a co-worker, and even though he didn't laugh, he had that "yeah, right" look on his face. And this is why people don't talk about this stuff. But I can't just keep it inside because it freaks me out that they were able to do that to me. I realize that I may have opened that door, but I was only asking for wisdom and discernment. I don't recall inviting anyone into my head like that. I don't scare easily, and I've never really felt the fear that is so common with other people's encounters, but man, it's an entirely new ball game when they are able to project themselves directly into your brain. And it really sucks when you have no one close that you can bounce ideas off of without being ridiculed. The co-worker went so far as to say, "I believe that you believe that happened," which to me is the same as calling me a liar. Not cool. Anyway, just the other day I went back out to the creek where the stick throwing encounter happened because I refused to run from this. I greeted them mentally with, "I'm just here to enjoy your home for a few hours and try to catch some fish, but I won't keep any." The first 2 hours were uneventful, but when I sat down to eat some lunch, I asked mentally if anyone was around and got an immediate wood-on-wood knock from about 100 yards down the creek. And that was it. That was all I needed. Confirmation. So, My advice to anyone who might be interested in learning how to communicate with these beings is the same as my friend's advice. Be very careful who you communicate with. Sorry this got so long, but I don't know how else to tell the story. I hope someone gets some benefit from it. Kansas, Phil. Well, that's definitely a holy shit story, Phil. Right? That's a holy shit story. And probably what do you think the ratio of people today in our society would react to after hearing that one, right? What, 90% of people are going to go, yeah, right? 10% are going to go, wow. What, 2% are going to go, I got the same shit going on. I don't know, who knows, right? But what you just shared is very similar to what just got shared previous to this, and we keep getting more and more and more people sharing the same similar story. Is it the actual forest dwelling Sasquatch beings / people? I don't know. Do we know that they are not just the only thing running around out there? Well, we know for certain they're not the only thing. It can be alarming, right? You know, I'm instantly thinking about what I'm gonna hear from the First Nations ladies when I finally get around to making that happen, and thinking that maybe possibly I might get invited along. I don't know. Who knows? To see if the mind speak thing can happen to me, or do I want that? Right? Do I want that? Do I actually want that? I don't know. I mean, I put a pretty firm stance out there every time I go in the woods solo. I do not wonder if they are around. I know they are. I know they can be anywhere, anytime, where I go. And I always say, just leave me alone, man. I'm here to fish. But I do not consider it their home. It's our home. Nobody can change my mind on that one. It's all our home. You go off the ground a few miles and look down, and you show me where the border is for me. You know what I mean? On the planet. I think we're all here to share life equally, as long as we respect each other equally. But unfortunately, the people who are in control have other plans, and they have other actions, and that's why all the shit show's going on around us, right? Anyway, there's lots to chew on here today, isn't there? Lots to chew on. A lot of people are going to be shaking their head up and down, and a lot of people are going to be going like this. But don't forget, it's your ride. It's your ride and your puzzle, no one else's. And we are all here looking for pieces to our individual puzzles. That's what we're doing. So take from it what you will or leave it, right? It's too easy. Take from it what you will or leave it, but don't blow a gasket. Blowing a gasket is an absolute sign of pure mental weakness, okay? Don't blow a gasket. This is a real long one. Okay, I'm gonna save that for later. We have more time. I try to get, the longer ones get in the beginning, and then we shorten them up with shorter ones as we get to the end. Here's one here that looks like it'll be not a bad one to fill in the last few minutes here before I gotta take off. A Savvy story, question mark, is the title of this one. Dear Steve, I sent this to you a year or so ago with the title, Not a Sasquatch Story. After gaining more information from your channel, I'm no longer sure. First off, because it happened outside of a little town in Kansas where there are more oil pumping stations than trees. My first error in reasoning. But even so, it was hands down, it has remained the weirdest 4 days in a lifetime of weirdness. You see, my parents forgot to drum the God-given gifts out of the heads of myself and my siblings. So, it's 2010. I drove my ex and her son from Minneapolis to the fly speck of Madison, Kansas. Like I said, more oil pumping stations than trees, and there weren't a whole lot of oil pumping stations. Our granddaughter, where she was staying with her other grandparents for the summer, it was a large A-frame well outside of town in the midst of rather charming rolling hills. Even so, before I stopped the car, my senses were going off like a fire alarm. I was not afraid, just alert. The people in my family tend to react to the hyper-strange with increased focus rather than fear. First night, 2:30 a.m. I get up to answer the call, and 10 feet in front of me, 3 to 4 slow-moving horizontal streaks of lightning cross in front of me. Okay, this is interesting, but I still have to pee, so I cross through the plane of its appearance and use the bathroom anyway. Sorry. I still have to pee, so I cross through the plane of its appearance and use the bathroom anyway, making a note to bring it up with the other grandma at an appropriate time the next. I did, and she just smiled and continued with her chores without comment. She was truly a spirit magnet, which she was not shy about admitting. My ex was sharing a room with her and our granddaughter. Just bear in mind the combined stories of myself, my ex, and my son were not assembled until we were driving back to Minneapolis. Saw repeatedly a large black figure bending over our granddaughter's crib nightly. My son said he felt watched every minute he was on the property. I concurred with that. The night before we left, I stepped outside for a smoke again. About 2:30 a.m., I heard what I perceived to be the sound of many children chanting in a language I did not recognize. It was a still summer night, no wind, and not occurrence for central Kansas. The sound of it was quite beautiful to me. One of the puzzle pieces I've gleaned from your show has me thinking differently about it. Peace and health to your family. Joseph Lester. Share away. Shared. There you go. There's a whole slew of back-to-back emails that aren't our typical classic experiences being shared, right? But there's a lot being shared today that make you go, huh? There you go. Take for everyone what you will or leave it, right? I wonder how many people are going to relate to what these people in this video have shared. I wonder how many people out there are going to go, holy shit, that's my story. Oh my God, the same thing happened to me. Right? I don't know. I guess we're going to possibly find out. But anyway, here I go. Got a handful more up. Got my list notched down a few more. Wow. All right, I'm out of here. I'm gonna get more people's voices shared tomorrow. And then I'm gonna get that roof on the old chicken and the turkey house and pack my shit, head back out to the coast. Make sure I bring that GoPro with me so I can record and possibly post while I'm away. And then there's a lot of interesting things coming. Talk to you shortly.